In today's Money Monday, you know those required minimum distributions that the government forces us to take? Well, it turns out that we can reinvest them. We've got Kyle Wingfield from Finley Alexander Wealth Management to tell us a little bit more. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's one of my favorite topics just because I think there's so much misinformation and people are seeking guidance. So I'm glad we're doing this.
Explain RMDs just in general.
Okay, so an RMD happens when you're 72 years old, the year in which you turn 72. So for those of you who are still thinking it's 70 and a half, it's not at 72. That changed December 31st, 2019, when the Secure Act passed. So what's important to understand is what that means. What that means is if you have any pre-tax retirement accounts, like an IRA, TSP, 401k, SEP IRA, whatever, 403b, you put money in pre-tax at 72, the government is telling you, mandating through a well thought out schedule that you've got to start taking a certain percentage out so they can tax it. And that percentage that comes to you gets taxed at ordinary income, which is the highest tax bracket. And so it's not that you can't get around that. You got to do it. So where the stress I think people get, or the anxiety or the frustration comes, I don't want to do that. I'd rather keep my money growing because I've got other purposes or other goals with it. So now what? Because I think I don't like being forced to do something I don't want to do. They got three options. They can spend the money, right? So if you're someone who actually needs to, go ahead and spend it, but you can't take it with you. The second one is people are like, I don't need it. So a number of our clients, if not most of them, don't necessarily need the money in their IRAs and 401ks to support the lifestyle they have. So now they're thinking, okay, this is going to be backup money in case something happens to me, or I'd like to give this to the next generation, whether grandchildren or whatnot. But what they don't realize is that leaving like a retirement account to the next generation that's not a spouse, like a grandchild, niece, nephew, whatever, that is, you're going to end up having to liquidate that account over 10 years, right? So you got to start thinking that adult child or whatever may be in a higher tax bracket, may be earning a lot of income at that point because they might be in their 50s or whatever. And so the idea is tax rates are going up. So does it make sense to leave that? No. So so they say, oh, I'm going to reinvest it.
Yeah.
Right. So you take the money out, you pay taxes on it once, and then you have one of two options. Most people go to the taxable account. Now, people don't think about their money from a taxation point of view. They think about it from a growth point of view. So they go down, they get a brokerage account or whatnot, individual, joint, non-qualified, whatever you want to call it. And then they put the money in there. And the question I have for them is how many times do you want to pay taxes on that dollar? Because if your account goes up in value, which is what you want, then you might generate a 1099 event, which is code for more taxes. And so that account will have earnings. The government or the IRS says, we're going to tax you on that growth, even though you didn't take a distribution out of that account. Whoa. So it's like, I have a philosophy. You shouldn't be paying taxes on money you're not using, but if you do it that way, you're creating an opportunity for that to happen. I think the other piece is people go, oh no, Kyle, I'm going to buy individual stocks and stuff like that. Well, that's fine. So what you do is you go into a tax deferred status. Isn't that the status you just left? And then the money grows and they're like, yeah, but when I cash out, I'm only paying capital gains. And I said, well, yeah, that assumes one thing else. That assumes that the tax laws don't change and that how they treat capital gains won't equalize or normalize with ordinary income. I don't know that, Uncle Sam likes to change his mind a lot. Yeah. The second thing is passing it to the next generation that way sounds good right now because you might get a step up in basis. But what if they change that? So knowing that, the other way is to go tax-free, like a Roth. But if you're retired, which most people at 72 are, then you can't fund a Roth because you don't have wages. So you might be considering Roth conversions. Think through that for a minute. And there's other tax-free alternatives you can consider. My piece is this: know what your options are, know what else is possible for you, and then make that decision.
It's a lot of moving parts, Kyle. I'm not going to pretend. It is a lot. So what are some of the options just for reinvesting that make sense? So we're not being taxed 2-3 times.
There's several options that are available. It's just in the context of what you want to do. So yes, there's some tax-free options. Yes, there's some taxable account options. Yes, there's some tax deferred options. I think understanding what the best option is done in the context of what's your plan, if you have one, what do you want to see happen? And I've seen this RMD conversation turn into really beautiful plans. So going from, I don't want to do it to, ooh, this is an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And then engaging the folks that can give you guidance on how to turn something you don't want to do into something that is the best thing ever
Yeah.
that may have happened in terms of planning your finances. So I've seen that happen time and time again over the years.
I'm
So
sure.
that's why I love this topic.
I was going to say, I know that Finley Alexander can help us do that as well. So how do our viewers get in touch with you?
First stop, finleyalexander.com. And if you want to really get educated on RMDs, again, it's one of my favorite topics. You can go to our financial literacy section. There is like, I think 4 or 5 different guides on RMDs, but I teach an RMD webinar. I teach live events for that. So stay tuned on what that is on the website. But you can look at the webinar that we have on it, and you can get my notes. I call them Kyle's notes. They're like Cliff's notes that breaks down the RMD, the percentage the government wants out of your account every single year, and then different ways to go about thinking about it. So learn and then execute.
All right, Kyle Wingfield from Finley Alexander, we appreciate you being with us, and we'll be right back with more Midday Maryland right after this. Stay tuned.